Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what they changed it from?
Yes, they changed it from. Let's see here.
They changed it to something from report. It didn't prove the the existence of aliens, to something to the effect of they didn't prove it, but they cannot rule it out either.
We didn't say it's not aliens. So the original one was government finds no evidence that aerial sightings were alien spacecraft.
Right.
Which was changed to U.S. finds no evidence of alien technology in flying objects, but can't rule it out either.
Right.
And it was done. Well, I don't know when the original article went up, but it
went
was
up
done,
June 3rd, and then I don't know when I don't know when they changed it.
If memory serves, it was like the same day, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the same day.
So I mean, so that reeks to me of a hand slap of some sort.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, I know. That's the question, right?
I have the suspicion that one of the authors of this recent article was Helen Cooper, who was part of the first original New York Times article in 2017. So I don't know. Maybe one of her co-authors, maybe call her and say, "Hey, what the hell?"
Yeah.
We want people. We want to keep stringing people along. Your headline sounds like it's been settled.
It kind of felt like Helen Cooper was distancing herself from how the story has been progressing and evolving.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the NASA stuff that's interesting. Not even NASA. One of the most interesting videos that I don't think they've ever explained is the Russian probe they sent to Mars that looks like it gets shot out of the sky.
Yeah, the Phobos 2.
Yeah. And I mean, the Russians had no qualms about saying something shot our probe down. Because, I mean, you see this thing move in front of the probe and then fly right at the probe, and then they lose contact with it. So there's no natural object that should have been able to do that.
The Russians have always been bolder in their claims about
everything.
Exactly, about everything, including claims of having found evidence of extraterrestrial life. Like, for example, someone in UFO Updates, this Facebook group, I think it was Kurt Collins, was gracious enough to share a very interesting PDF, which was a scan of a 1974 UFO magazine that I never heard of. It was called Probe. At least I think it was before the idea of probing as, the whole thing with the alien abduction. So it was an interesting coincidence. Anyway, among other things that were included in the magazine was this idea of some comment or quote by this Russian scientist Kardashev. And Kardashev is a name that will be familiar to people who are fans of science fiction because of this famous, the Kardashev scale of advanced civilizations, like Type 1 is the civilization that is capable of harnessing the energy of their home planets, Type 2, Type 3, whatever. And there was this quote saying that the Soviets had detected some kind of like radio signal, which they didn't have any doubt that was artificial and of extraterrestrial origin. And I was like, wow, why haven't I heard any of these before? Maybe possibly because their Western colleagues didn't take it seriously. Mm-hmm. But like I said, this is something that for a long time Soviets didn't care if the Western scientists gave credence to their claims. And that's why there was this kind of like a split between Western and Eastern civilizations. And that's when Soviet scientists were studying very, very controversial things like the human bioenergetic system and all these ideas that were related also with their psychic program,
right?
And also all these studies that they did with their own psychics. What's the name of this woman? You can find those videos on YouTube. Even Robert Bigelow mentioned those when he was interviewed by Joe Rogan. Anyway, and I think a similar thing has also happened with Chinese scientists. How they do their thing, and they really don't care if they get any validation by Western science. I think that to them maybe it's even an asset that Western scientists don't take them seriously, because that leaves them the freedom to study these fields without the risk of having to compete with Western laboratories, which obviously will have far more resources at their disposal.
Yeah, there's something really interesting, and I don't know what it is, but this occurred. We were talking about that really bizarre case in Slack a couple of weeks ago about the alien case. I don't want to spoil it, and I don't want to go too deep in into the rabbit hole, because it's a pretty wild case that we had come across. We were talking about.
Who are you spoiling it for?
Well, I'm going to put it in my books. Right?
Oh, okay. All right.
But I know what you're talking about. Yes,
but it's also like a 15-minute. It's also like a 15-minute story too. So I don't want to not do it justice, but it basically involves like some real 1950s sci-fi alien stuff with transmissions from someone's dead father, and it's just a bonkers story, right? And there is a trend, and I've been wrestling with what to make of this in an honest way. I notice invariably when I go through, Albert Rosales' Humanoid Database, that the most bonkers stories are always from, Russia / former USSR countries, Eastern Bloc countries, and a lot of Latin American countries. And I'm only half convinced it's because they're made up and sensational. Half of me also thinks that these cultures have maintained a timeline where they're just more open to these things, and have been more open to these things, so that they remain more fantastic, sort of along the lines of that comment that, we can get into that too if you want to talk about it, Red, but that comment that, the Russians never killed their witches, so they never really, so they had a head start on the U.S., right, when it came to the PSYOPs wars. And so I'm kind of go back and forth, like, is this just yellow journalism and sensationalist tabloid stuff, or are these cultures experiencing more bonkers stories because they've just had that in their life for a longer time period?
It's a very good question. And it might be a little of both.
Well, some of them, when was the fall of the Berlin Wall? I think we talked about this last time. 1989, 1990 or something like that, right? 91?
Yeah. Yes.
Right around that time, like, there are so many like absolutely fantastic humanoid stories that came out of the former USSR, and I don't know if that's like because it was a liminal time and when it was a time of transition, so the phenomena was attracted to it more, or whether these stories actually had a chance to get out because the Iron Curtain had fallen, or what. These questions keep me up at night, guys.
True.
But, I think, again, you're looking at both. I mean, it was a super transitional time for that area. So, yeah, I mean, more weird stuff is likely to happen. But also, yeah, we can hear these stories a lot easier now because the walls have fallen. Literally.
Yeah.
Some walls, obviously, there's obviously still the language barrier, which unfortunately still prevents us from learning from the cases that is happening in non-English countries,
Yeah.
Slavic countries, and also the East Asian countries. What's happening in China, and obviously there's also the big firewall that's maintained by the Chinese government that prevents a real share of information between China and the rest of the world.
No, Miguel, I would really value your opinion on this. There is a flavor to Mexican UFO reports, right? I mean, that's distinctly different than the American flavor, right? Would you say that?
There's a Latin American flavor. I don't know if it's strictly Mexican, but yeah, this is something that I've often talked about.
At one point, I thought you said that you didn't like the term Latin American, so I didn't use that term.
No, I have no problem with Latin America. That's the proper term.
Okay, I can't remember where I heard that. Then I'm sorry, I must have get mixed up. Sorry. You never know nowadays, right?
Yeah, what I heard is the term Latin X.
Oh, okay, that's it. Okay, yeah, that's cosine.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, what we're saying is, I feel is at least with regards to Latin America, totally applicable. The idea of how in these cultures the mix between folklore, religion, not only Catholic religion, but also the combination with indigenous religious traditions here in Mexico, like, for example, the shamanic traditions, and in other countries in Caribbean, Santeria, in Brazil, the Yoruba and Candomblé, and all that stuff. I've always maintained that one of the reasons why Latin American culture is more like open to these things that really are absurd from a strictly Cartesian, logical frame of reference. This is what I choose to call magical realism, and I use that term, which is extracted from this trend in Latin American literature, which there were authors like Gabriel Garcia Marquez that used to write novels, like his most famous one, obviously, 100 Years of Solitude. And in 100 Years of Solitude, you see that he combines totally outrageous, fantastical things with the actual plot of the novel, which is these two families that have all these problems and all these characters, but at the same time, he has no qualms with having one of the characters that, for some reason, manifests white butterflies everywhere he goes. It's like, okay, because. And he never has to explain it. It just is.
I mean, but that's a way of living and a way of thinking that we just don't get in the States, or I guess like when people do embrace that sort of manner of living in the States, people think of them as woo or cuckoo or something. Yeah.
In the West, people are obsessed with the mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
You need to explain the operating system behind a given phenomena. If you cannot explain it adequately, then people feel entitled to disregard it completely. Is this something that happens all the time when skeptics are trying to debate UFOs with believers? Believers say, okay, there's this case, and this is something that was, totally amazing. And the believer feels entitled to say, okay, but then how do you explain that the aliens comes from thousands of light years away, or how do you explain that they are able to defy gravity, or that or paralyze people, or why do you explain the rationale behind abductions, and why do ufologists need to explain all that? You know, I mean, it's not like when